Hey guys, welcome back to another video. And today we're going to be solving the Leet code question, best time to buy and sell stock with Cooldown. Alright, so before I get started with the question, I just want to mention that if there are any questions that you want me to solve, just let me know down in the comments and I'll try to get them solved for you. Alright, so let's just start reading the question and then let's dive into how we can actually solve it. Alright, so say you're given an array for the ith element is the price of a given stock on day I. We need to design an algorithm to find the maximum profit. So you may complete as many transactions as you like, which is you can buy one and sell one share of the stock multiple times with the following restrictions. You may not engage in multiple transactions at the same time. So that means that you must sell the stock before you buy again. All right, and so you once you buy a stock, you have to sell it before you can buy it for the second time. And again, after you sell your stock, you cannot buy the stock on the next day. So we have something called a cooldown period. So after you sell the stock, you cannot buy. So let's say you sell it on day 1, you cannot buy on day 2. You must wait until at least 1 day. So you can buy again starting from day 3. All right. So now that we understand that, let's try to understand how we can solve this question and try to break it down into separate parts. In order to solve this question, we can kind of break it down into 3 different states that we have in order to solve this question. And now let's kind of go over what these states actually are. So I'm just going to make 3 random states and I'm going to represent them each with a circle. So one of them is going to be A, then we have state B, and we have state C. So let's just start off with state A. Now I'm going to call this a cooldown state. So once you're inside of the cooldown state over here, you can stay in here as long as you want to. And what is happening in this cooldown state is you have sold a stock, right? And you're waiting to buy a stock. So you own nothing. You're just waiting to buy a stock. And you can wait for as long as you want. So what this arrow over here represents is you can wait in the state as long as you desire. So when you're in the state, you do not own anything, but you are waiting to buy a stock. And that's when our next state comes. So if you decide to buy a stock, so the action you're going to perform is buy. So if you buy a stock, you're going to move from state A to state B. And we're going to call state B our buy state. Once we come to the state, we're either going to buy the stock at what our current price is, or we're going to hold on to a stock that we have previously bought. So and similarly, we can stay in the state for as long as we like. And the arrow represents that we can stay in the state until then. So currently, we have a stock in state B, and we're holding on to it. Now, we can sell that stock. So let's say we sell this stock, right? And now we're going to go to state C. And I'm going to call state C our sell state. So what happens in this state is we have sold our stock. So the stock that we had in state B is now sold. So we do not have it anymore. And we made our profit with it, profit or loss, whatever it may be. And so after we go to the state, we immediately then go back to state A. So what happened is we sold it, and now we're just waiting. So we go to state A. In state A, we don't have anything. We are done with our cooldown period, and we're just going to wait for the next time we want to buy. So these over here are the 3 basic states that we have, and we kind of divided our problem into 3 separate sub-problems, right? And now let's try to see how can you earn profit in each of these states. So let's start off with the cooldown state. Actually, I'm just going to call it CD, and this is going to be our cooldown state, which is whatever this one over here, right? So to get the maximum profit, we can do 2 things. We can either do nothing. So in our cooldown state, we can just wait, right? We're not going to do anything. Or we can get the profit from the previous sell. So In the cooldown sell, we're not doing anything, but we get the profit from the previous day's sell. So let's say we're talking about day I. We're going to get profit of day I minus 1. So 1 day previous to this. So that's how we can get our max profit from the cooldown. We're going to take the maximum of what happens if we do nothing, or if we take the profit from the previous day. Okay, so now let's see how we can make profit from buying, right? And over here we have two things. We can either keep holding, so we're going to keep holding whatever we already bought, or we can buy the stock at whatever the price is. So we can buy at the price of day I. So whatever the current price is, we're going to buy it at that price. And now we finally need to see how can we make, so what is the profit we make when we sell? So when we sell, we're going to make profit by selling the stock that we already own at the current price. So we're going to sell at current price. Okay, so these are the three states we have and the three type of ways we can make money with it. So this is kind of a really broad overview, and now let's dive into more deeply on how this actually works. So I'm going to use these prices. So these are the same prices given in the Leet code question as the example, and let's try to get the answer using these prices. Okay, so now our first step is going to be to initialize our variables. So we need to initialize our cooldown, our buy, and our sell. So how are we going to start off with initializing them? So I'm going to call cooldown CD, I'm going to call buy just buy, and then I'll call sell S. So in the very beginning, our cooldown is going to have a value of 0. And that's because we did not sell anything in the previous day, and neither do we have a cooldown value. Similarly, our sell value is also going to be 0 because, well, we have nothing to sell. And finally, our buy value is actually going to be negative infinity. And why is it negative infinity? So what we're doing here, 0, negative infinity, and 0, what these are, these numbers represent the profit. So let's say you're buying straight off at day 1. You need to spend money to buy, right? So when you're spending money, your profit is going to decrease. So we're going to start off with a negative number, which is really large. And this is going to make more sense as we go further down in solving this question. So now what we're going to do is we're going to enter inside of a for loop, which is going to iterate through each of the price and prices. So we're going to go through each of these prices. And in the beginning, we're going to initialize something called the old cooldown, old buy, and the old sell. So this stores the values for 1 day previous of the day I. So we're looking at day I minus 1. So I'm just going to call this old CD, and old buy, and then old sell. And it's just going to be the values that we have defined over here. So we're going to have CD, B, and S. So we're going to have a new value for our cooldown, we're going to have a new value for our sell, and we're also going to have a new value for our buy. Now, let's go back to what we were talking earlier. We were talking about how we can get the maximum profit in each of these conditions. So instead of just writing them generically, let's come up with some sort of formula which you can use to get the maximum profit in each of these cases. Let me just change the color. Okay, in order to get the maximum profit of our cooldown, we're either going to look at the old cooldown, right? Or we're going to look at the old sell price. So what we're going to consider is going to be whatever is the maximum between these two. Because our cooldown value can either come from the sell price over here, or we can keep holding on to the previous old cooldown. So according to that, we're going to change our cooldown value. Similarly, let's see how we can do that for sell. So sell, on the other hand, we're selling it for whatever price is at that day. So the price at day I, we're just selling it there. So we're going to take our old buy. So this is going to give us the profit of our old buy. And remember, our profit when we buy is going to decrease, because when you buy, your profit is going to decrease. You're spending money. So when we're selling, we're going to be making money, hopefully. So when we, or if we're losing money, we're going to add that profit to our old buy. So we're going to add the current price. So price of, okay, I'll just write, so our current, so that's just going to be price of today. So whatever today, the current day is, we're going to add that. So that is going to be our selling, the max sell price. So now let's look at our buy. So for buy, we are going to compare it between two things again. So we're going to find the maximum between, so in our buy, we can either hold on to what we currently have. So in that case, we're just going to compare it to the old buy. So this is the case when we're holding on to what we have. And the second condition is we're going to make a purchase according to whatever today's price is. So in order to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to take the old cooldown, right? Because we need to decrease the price. So we're going to take our old cooldown and decrease it by today's price. Since we're buying it, our profit is going to decrease. So we're going to decrease that by today's price. We're going to find the maximum between those two, and that is going to become the profit for our buy. So now what we're going to do is we're going to iterate through our prices and kind of go step by step and see how it's actually done. So let's see our first iteration. In our first iteration, we have the number 1. So over here, we're going to compare between our old cooldown and our old sell. So what is our old cooldown in the beginning? It's 0. So we're comparing between 0 and 0. So it doesn't matter. We're just going to get a value of 0. Okay, and now let's look at our sell. So we're going to sell what we currently have. So our old buy is negative infinity. So negative infinity plus 1 is still negative infinity. So we're going to still have negative infinity. Okay, so now we're going to go to our buy. So in our buy, we're either going to have whatever our old buy is. So in this case, our old buy is negative infinity. Or we're going to make a purchase today. So if we make a purchase today, which is going to be our old cooldown, which is 0 from over here, and we're going to subtract that with today's price. So 0 minus 1, which is negative 1. And negative 1 is a lot bigger than negative infinity. So our value here is going to be negative 1. So that's what we get for our first iteration. Now let's move on to the number 2. So over here, so number 2, so same thing. We're going to find the maximum between the old cooldown and the old sell. Old cooldown is 0. Old sell is negative infinity. Maximum is still 0. Okay, so now again, we have the old buy plus the price today. So now we have our sell condition where we're going to sell it. So we take our old buy, which is negative 1, and we're going to add that with today's price. So negative 1 plus 2, that gives us profit of 1. So we make 1. And now we go to our buy. So we compare with the old buy, which is negative 1, or we can make a buy today. And if we make a buy today, we're going to be doing 0 minus today's price. So we're going to be getting negative 2, 0 minus 2. And obviously negative 1 is larger. So we're going to hold on to that and stick on to the negative 1. So this gets away with our 2. So now we're going to go on to 3. And so for 3, we're going to compare between old cooldown, old sell. So 0, 1, obviously 1 is larger, so it becomes 1. And then we have 2 for our sell because we're selling it. So the old price plus price today. So negative 1 plus 3, which is 2. And then over here, we're going to compare negative 1 to if we have to bought today. So 0 minus 3 is negative 3. So obviously negative 1 is still better. Okay, so now we go on to the next price, which is 0. And so for our cooldown, old cooldown versus the old sell. So 1 versus 2. 2 is larger, so we have 2. Then over here, it's our, so now we're going to sell. So our old buy, so that's negative 1. And we're going to add that with today's price, which is 0. So that's still negative 1. So we make a loss if we had to do that. And now we're going to buy. So if we had to buy, it's going to be today's price. So we're going to compare between the old buy, which is -1, or if we were to buy today, it's going to be the old cooldown, which is 1, and we're going to subtract that with today's price. So we're going to do 1 minus 0, and that gives us 1. So that's a positive value, and that's greater than -1. So we're going to change our value accordingly. So now we're done with 0, and now we're off to the last number, which is 2. And so this is the last time we need to do this. So old cooldown versus old sell. So 2 versus -1. 2 is larger, obviously. And over here, we're going to do our old buy. So 1 plus 2, so that's 3. And then finally, we're going to compare 1 with our old cooldown minus today's price. So 2 minus 2 is 0. Obviously, 1 is still greater. So now, at the ending of this, we end up with these 3 values. So we have 2, we have 3, and we have 1. So we can have either of these 3 answers. It could be 2, 3, or 1. And whatever is the maximum is going to be our answer. So how do we know that whatever our maximum is going to be the answer? And to understand that, let's look at our buy. So let's understand what this actually means. So this says that if you go to the last price, so once you go to 2, we can buy 2. But why would you buy right before you're done? Why would you buy on the last day? So you would not make any profit. So we're going to take that out, because no matter how much it costs, you're still losing money. So there's no point of comparing this. So we're going to scratch that out. Now we're comparing between our sell and our cooldown. So cooldown means you're not doing anything. You're not buying, you're not selling, you're just there. So that could be a good option. So in this case, you don't want to do anything. You're just staying where you are. So this could be an answer. And similarly, selling could also be an answer. So you could sell on the last day and possibly get a good profit. Who knows? So what we're going to do is we're going to return the maximum between cooldown and our sell. And if we go back to Leet code and see, that is also our answer. So we get an answer of 3. Okay, so now let's try to understand how we can write it in code. I honestly believe that if you understand the theory behind it, the code is still the easier part. So our first step is going to be to initialize our variables. So we have our cooldown, and that's going to start off with the value of 0. Then we have our sell, and that is also going to start off with the value of 0. And then we have our buy. So the buy is going to be a -infinity. So in Python, you can just do float and write -inf, and that's going to have a value of -infinity. Okay, so now we need to iterate through each of our stock prices. So for price in prices. So now that we have that, we need to initialize our old cooldown, old sell, and old buy. So I'm just going to call it old cooldown, and it's currently going to have the value of cooldown. So then we have old sell, same thing again, sell, and then we have old buy, which is going to equal to buy. Okay, now we need to give it the new values, right? So our cooldown value is now going to be the maximum between our old cooldown. So this is the same thing that we did earlier, but I'm just writing it down. So it's between our old cooldown and our old sell. And then again, if for our new sell values, it's going to be our old buy, so old buy, and we're going to add that with today's price, so plus price. And our buy is also going to change. So now buy is going to become the maximum between our old buy. So we're either holding or we're buying. So if we're buying, we're going to take our old cooldown and we're going to subtract today's price from it. So old cooldown minus price. And that should be it. So we're going to keep iterating through it, and we're going to get the values for cooldown, sell, and buy by the last iteration. And after that, we need to return the maximum between the sell value and our cooldown value. All right, so let's submit this. And as you can see, our results did get accepted. And finally, do let me know if you have any questions or if you have a better solution to solve this. And thanks a lot for watching the video, and don't forget to like and subscribe if this helped you out. Thanks a lot. Bye guys.